Do something about property taxes. That's the charge that Idaho lawmakers have been given from the people of Idaho, at least over the last couple of years in the last legislative session. As many of you are aware, property tax rates skyrocketed in some parts of Idaho, mostly because of the increasing home prices. Some argue Idaho is a victim of its own success, with so many people wanting to move here. But some Idaho legislators have come up with a bold idea to address it. They're pitching a new bill that essentially gets rid of a lot of property taxes. This, of course, comes with a trade-off. Here's Joe Paris.
There's a big new idea at the Idaho statehouse: eliminate property taxes to help Idahoans struggling to keep up with them. House Bill 741 would remove all property taxes other than voter-approved bonds and school levies from primary residences that receive the homeowners exemption. The bill would also raise the grocery tax credit from $100 to $175 per person. It would also increase sales tax 1.85%, with a portion of that increase going to local taxing authorities who currently collect property taxes.
It will help keep people in their homes in Idaho. It'll help our elderly. It'll help people who are trying to buy a new home. It does shift the burden a little bit over to the sales tax, but it's a tax you can avoid if you choose to.
House Majority Leader, Republican Representative Mike Moyle, is co-sponsoring the bill. He says the idea is to shift taxes in a manageable way for homeowners struggling with property taxes.
Think about your grandmother. She's not spending a whole lot in sales tax. Now all of a sudden her property taxes are going to go on 80%, 70, 80%. That's huge to them.
Critics argue the idea is unfair to people who don't own homes but will still see their sales tax go up.
Critics have said in committee and outside of committee that what about renters? This doesn't really help renters out at all. How would you respond to that?
Renters are in a bad place because they're price takers, and right now we don't have enough rentals, which is one of the reasons prices are so high on rentals. But it does help renters. They get an increase in the credit. They get another $75 for each one of them there. If it's a family of four, added up, 100, 300 bucks. They also will get the added benefit. If they choose to buy a home, it will be easier for them to buy a home because their purchasing power goes higher now that they're not paying all that money for property taxes. So people's taxes and people's mortgages in some cases will go down several $100s a month. And if the mortgage goes down, you can more easily afford a home. So it does help renters too.
The Idaho Center for Fiscal Policy released their report on the idea, sharing concerns about the concept. The report highlights, among other points, that this could be a tax hike of potentially hundreds of dollars, but with no reduction in housing costs for some Idahoans. The report concludes, quote, "We do not support House Bill 741 due to its negative impacts on low and moderate income Idaho families and overall disparate approach to property tax relief." Moyle says he understands concerns, but argues it is a net benefit for most Idahoans. In the spirit of transparency and education on the bill, Moyle says they're working on a tool that Idahoans can use to see how the idea would impact them individually.
We're going to try to get a website online so people can go put in their property taxes, and it'll show them what it saves and what they'll get back from the increased credit and from the lowering of the property taxes. So people can understand it's going to put more money in most people's pockets, hundreds of dollars in some cases a month.
I think a big question people will be thinking when we show the story is, okay, so if it's going to shift X, Y, and Z ways, who's left holding the bag? Who's this going to end up negatively impacting?
I think, who's ever making the purchase on sales tax. Are you going to go buy a Mercedes or are you going to go buy a Honda? What kind of, where your spending habits will determine who's going to pay the bill. And another thing that people don't realize with sales tax, we are a destination state. There are a lot of people that come here to recreate. I have friends who have Airbnbs here, and there's people in those things every weekend that come here for a week or two or a month, and they're paying sales tax, and they're paying sales tax on the stuff they buy when they're here. They're paying sales tax on that Airbnb when they're here. They are paying the tax. The best tax is when somebody else pays.
All right, Joe, two questions for you. Do the numbers add up on this thing, first of all?
Yeah, so I was talking to Representative Moyle clearly about that, and I said, the cities and counties are, they get a lot of money from property taxes. Is this going to make them whole? Is this going to maintain their budgets? And Representative Moyle tells me, yes, the way that this is set up, the cities and counties will be getting enough money to power their budgets, and there'll also be money put away from them. They know that they have to keep the cities and counties whole. They can't just take property taxes away. There needs to be an added benefit. The second question, Brian, I'm assuming you're going to ask is, will it pass this session? And that's a major question. And when talking talking to Representative Moyle, he tells me, he thinks he could get this through this session. He thinks that there could be enough interest to really get it through. But as you highlighted, Brian, it is late in the session. And Representative Moyle told me that one of his biggest concerns about the legislation is that it is very complicated. And sometimes when things are complicated, by habit, people will vote no. So the idea he has with the transparency and the tool to show Idahoans exactly what this would do in practice, he's hoping that over the next several months, there'll be an education progress. And really next year, this could be a big idea, 2023.
Yeah, it seems like a simple idea, but yeah, it is complicated. I'm sure all 105 of our lawmakers would have questions about it. All right. Thank you very much, Joe.